Well, just to respond to some of it, though, we have obviously a drinking in public places order, which we didn't bring in because we had massive, overwhelming problems across the borough of Fareham with drinking in public places, but to give the powers to the police to allow them to seize alcohol if people were being unruly and drinking in public places. And as we've heard, that order is going to cease in the next 9 months. So clearly we do need the police to still have those powers. The issue, I think, of dispersal is one thing, but obviously relocation and moving stuff on to another part of the borough is something that we wouldn't wish to see. And I have posed the question already as to whether we could have an order that covers the entire borough, and then we can make sure that we don't get those, the problem just moves just out of the zone and then nothing can be done about it. And apparently it is not the case that we, as we could do it with the DPPO, we can't do it with one of these. We need evidence. So if we end up with a problem in another area which isn't part of this zone, if we do in fact agree this after the consultation, then we would have to reconsult and extend the zone out to cover that particular area. And I think what is clear though is that drink is the major problem. There are others, there's the begging, there's the drugs, whatever, but I think it is very often alcohol-fueled problems that we do get. And it's not an enormous problem, but my belief is that people, families, people visiting our town and our town centre, whether it's to live or work or recreation, they should have the right to go about their business and not feel vulnerable and not feel intimidated by people who are causing problems on our streets. So therefore we do need to have the powers to be able to give them to the police, to be able to do something about it where necessary. And I fully accept the point that there are different sorts of vulnerable people. It is not all black and white, but without a doubt there is a core that will not respond to advice and help and counselling and all of the armamentarium that we have amongst the networks in the area, the hostels, etc. There are some that do not wish to engage in any of that, and clearly they are perhaps at the nub of this problem that we need these powers to sort out. Others, no doubt, can be signposted towards people who can help them, and that is what we do, and that is what we will continue to do. So clearly it's not black and white, and there are areas of grey along the way, but we need to do what we can to make sure that people can go about their business, not intimidated within the town centre, and that we can give whatever help we can to these people, but clearly, ultimately, there needs to be power that the police have to be able to enforce. And yes, I fully accept that slapping £1,000 fine on somebody who's homeless, you're not going to see much of that money, if any of it, come back. But clearly there does need to be an element of deterrence here, and we do need to have the powers to actually do something about it. But of course, the powers that we're talking about, which are covered in the second appendix, they're not all about giving fines out. As I said, I think drink is at the heart of many of these problems, and the officers can seize drinks that people have on them and therefore help with removing that problem. So it's not all about slapping people with enforcement notices. Anyway, we'll move over to other members now. So I'll start first Parliament if you'd like to cover some of the things we've heard as well, and then we'll move on.
Thank you, Chairman. I think probably you did cover quite a bit I was going to say anyway. But I think just going on to talk about Mrs. Trott's, Councillor Mrs. Trott's deputation was, she talks about to 10 assistants who do not engage. Well, of course, they don't, and the suggestion of perhaps an accommodation, to put them in, well, why would they go? Because we're saying they won't engage anyway, so why would they do that anyway? So, I think that's the point. And really, when you look at the various options we've got, the housing options, the rough sleepers, Avalon, there's a huge situation out there where people have got the availability to go to these various places, to take advice and to move on. I would accept you're never going to solve the whole problem, but we do need to have something in place, and as the leaders just said, to actually make this work and to move forward. And I suppose I would make the point again, of course, is that we're talking about consultation at the moment. We're not actually doing it at the moment. We're talking about going out to consult with people to find out what their views are. And who knows what those views are. It may well be that we need to change some of it. So I think to move forward, that's correct. I think talking from Councillor Cunningham's situation, I don't believe this is a sledgehammer to crack a nut, as has been said. I think this is a very sensible arrangement to move forward. I'll be delighted to talk to the Police Crime Commissioner to get more police involved, and I know what the answer will be immediately. We won't get them at the end of the day. And I think the other point really to talk about these vulnerable people, they are causing a problem to our residents. We can't get away from that. That's been reported. And I think if we use the DPPO that's currently in place, well, people can be fined £100 for that. They never are, of course, but when you watch the police, and I watch them in action quite regularly in this respect, they confiscate the alcohol, and that usually solves the problem. They very rarely actually try to fine anybody. I think the other point to mention also is, I did talk about, or the report talks about partnership. I sit every month on the Partnership Action Group, which is chaired by the Chief Inspector of Fareham, where all the partners are there. We talk about everything from people with mental health problems to homeless, rough sleepers, and we actually make arrangements for them to be dealt with. So we are proactively doing that all the time. I think really that's the main point I wanted to make, the answers I wanted to make. But I'll still make the point, we are talking about a consultation process at the moment, nothing more than that.
Thank you very much. Next Councillor, Mrs. Landry.
I think both of you have covered most of what I was going to say. What I will say though about engagement with 101, etc., if the homeless people will not engage, that is, give up their drugs, go on a programme, they will not be welcome there. So I don't really think there's anything more that we can do about that, apart from what we've got down here. As we said in item 13, the council must listen to the views of residents, businesses and the chief of police. Also, the PSPO provide police and other authorised officers with additional power to tackle antisocial behaviours. There is a consultation going on, and I think we all need to look in and listen to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Miscall.
Chairman, along with Councillor Mrs. Trott, I sat not that a year ago on a homeless panel where we looked at the issues of homelessness within Fareham. Fareham does not have a huge homelessness problem. There are a core number of homeless people who do not want to get any help. They won't engage with any of the authorities that we have. We have some fantastic authorities within this borough who do fantastic work, and they should be congratulated for all the homeless that they do help. But there's that small number that are causing the problem. One of the questions I'd like to ask is that we do have a DPPO in place at the moment. Why is it escalated such to the extent that's in this report, where we do have powers where we can start to take that alcohol away from the homeless people? Has that been allowed to fail over the last few months? As I say, this is a consultation. It will only be in the town centre. Another concern of mine will be it's not going to be a borough-wide ban if that's the way we go. So we may have to look at this, Stubbington, Loxheath, Portchester, if we have people moving out of the town centre. But I agree with the consultation. We'd just like to have an understanding of why it suddenly escalated, and we do have something in place that we could be using now.
Okay. We felt the reason for that was Southampton.
I think perhaps one or two other social issues as well, but it's, I mean, the DPPO, I think as I said earlier, it is still in place. The police are still confiscating alcohol, etc. But of course it finishes in March 2017, so we need something else to replace it, and this seems to be the vehicle to do it. But it is still in place, and it is still working at the moment.
I don't think we have much evidence of people relocating from where the order has been placed in Southampton.
I think that there's some evidence, but I wouldn't be absolutely certain on that, to be honest.
Okay, anybody else? Councillor Miscall.
I fully support the measures to make the town centre a safer place for all residents and visitors, but I do have a concern that this will not cover the true homelessness issue. And we need to ensure that all the agencies work together, the police, the council and social services work together going forward to make sure everybody has enough help that they have. I also have a concern that will we then be pushing these people out to the Loxheath, and as Councillor Spell said, to the Loxheath, to the Porchesters of the borough, and spreading them wider over the borough. The other concern that I have is that we're taking the borough-wide ban of the drinking away in 2017. Will this consultation cover areas such as the beaches for next spring, summer? So we have had issues down on the beach area, especially in the nice summer with alcohol down there.
I think first of all, just talk about the DPPO. We're not actually taking it away. It's if you like, a statutory thing that's been taken away by the government to be replaced by this. I think with regards to the other points you talked about, I did mention the Partnership Action Group meetings that we have monthly, and really that deals with quite a number of different people of all age groups with various problems, and all the partners are there, whether it's our own housing partners, whether it's Hampshire County Council, whatever else, and we actually made plans for these people to move them forward, to help them out, etc., to deal with them, and it's quite impressive. I've got to say, it's one of these meetings that actually does produce results at the end of it. I think the Chief Inspector makes certain that people get actions and they're actually delivered as well. So I think we've moved some way forward, and I think the vulnerable people are being looked at as far as possible. But I think we've all made a point there are one or two that perhaps don't want to be involved and won't be involved no matter what you do at the end of the day. So I think the PAC meetings are certainly the way forward.
Right, then the recommendations are those. Is the recommendation agreed? Okay, thank you very much.